Hi friends, my name is Ketan Gala. I am a businessman uh, and I'm welcoming you all to join the fomonomore group.
Hey everyone, I'm Vrinda Loiwal.
Join me for my 7-part series with fomonomore. See you there.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Vrinda Loiwal and I am talking from India. It's a beautiful Monday night. I hope it's been a restful weekend for all of you. I run the Center for Social Emotional Learning and I am really excited to talk to you here on FOMO No More, continuing our series on education reform. If you've just joined in, make sure you like and subscribe the page. It is a wonderful, wonderful page with lots of positivity and skills being shared every day. Today we have with us a very, very special guest. His name is Mr. Ketan Gala. Mr. Ketan Gala is from Mumbai, India. He is a businessman and he is a passionate photographer, artist, and he also likes to cook. Particularly in his business, though, he heads the CBSE board publishing of textbooks for Navneet Education Limited. A lot of us have used Navneet stationery growing up, and Ketan here heads the publishing division for the CBSE books for Navneet. He is an amazing person and has a very, very, very big vision for where he wants to take education. And I could not be more excited to have him here with us for our talk.
Thank
so,
you.
Ketan, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's been a nice Monday evening, and yes, I'm excited to be here today. It's
Fabulous.
it's the first session of this sort for me. So yeah, it's going to be fun today, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. So happy to have you here.
Yeah.
Ketan, we'd love to understand a little bit about your personal interest in education. Tell us how you are interested.
So of course, this Navneet is our family business. We are around since 60 years now, and my personal interest in education is more to do with the passion to educate the small children and try to bring some difference while we do so. And throughout my school education, if I go back 20, 25 years, we in India have been taught a little differently, where a lot of rote learning happens. A lot of back then it was very, very high. Now, of course, the school systems are changing. We are having a lot of new ways of learning. Whether even our Indian boards are there or the international boards in India are there. But back then, yes, it was a lot of rote learning, and the difference came when I went to study abroad. I would like to thank my dad for pushing me out and letting me go there. I got the opportunity to be there. So one thing that changed there was the application-based learning, which I got exposed to, and that got me including the difference that is there between our education system and the system there, and that got me thinking that someday when I go back, and which I was very sure that I'll go back to our country and come back to India to make a difference in the education system. So that's how I got into various projects in Navneet dealing with education. And the current one, of course, as you rightly said, I am heading the publishing for the CBSE textbooks. Yeah. Yes.
That's wonderful. It is so great to hear that you had a very personal experience of the Indian education system where it was a lot of rote learning.
Yeah.
And not all of us succeed in this rote learning method, right? So a lot of us, in fact, get neglected and we never get to shine in this system where if you don't do well on that one paper at the end of the year, then you're screwed. But you went from here to do your bachelor's to the US and you experienced a very different kind of learning system. and that had a profound impact on you.
Yes, I would like to add here that the system where we are in, where it's a lot of textbook learning at the school time, where schools are so pressed to just finish the curriculum without realizing that all kids are different and kids have different ways and ability to learn. And that's the biggest thing that's missed out in those days. At least I could see it's missed out in those days, and that was the difference which I saw, and I thought that that is the difference which I'll bring once I come back. And yes, in publications we are doing it through innovative ideas, and one such idea which we are going to be discussing today is the SEL, the social emotional learning bit that we have incorporated in our books.
Fabulous. So, I know you have so much to share on this topic, because whenever there's a personal experience attached to any educator's journey, it just becomes all the more beautiful.
Yeah.
But before we get into what you are doing through Navneet, I would love for all of us here listening to understand. Most of us don't know much about textbooks. Like, how are textbooks published? What is the 50 years ago, what used to happen? What is happening now? Has it changed a lot? What is the scenario of textbook publication?
So here in India, we have the NCF, the National Framework Curriculum, who develops the entire framework for any textbook for the state boards or for the CBSE or the ICSE boards, which we have in India. And publishers take that framework, and we develop the textbooks based on the guidelines, curriculum guidelines given in that framework for the particular board which we are making for. So this is how we end up creating user-friendly textbooks, adhering to the curriculum prescribed by the board, and ensuring that age-appropriate and the right content goes to the children.
Okay, so age-appropriate content, correct content, content free from any errors is, of course, the primary concern for any publisher. And of course, you said that it has to be aligned to the CBSE board and the national curriculum framework prescribed by the country. Super. And would you say there's been a lot of change in the way textbooks have been writing their content over the last 30 years?
So the last change that had come in the curriculum was somewhere, as I remember, is 2005, and now the new change is expected. The new curriculum guidelines have come. The new education system guidelines have come in, and so it's been a while that we have seen a change in the core curriculum per se. But yes, publishers do evolve every year, and we as publishers, we try to bring series after series every 2 to 3 years and try to bring new ways of learning. And it's gone beyond in early days where we had a single color to 2-color book, and it has gone beyond to becoming a 4-color full textbook, and not just a textbook but very pictorial. It's not just a textbook which is plain text anymore. So yes, we have evolved as publishers, and we have tried to bring content which is error-free, which is very, very important. As far as we go, as far as Navneet goes, we are very, very, I would say we are very passionate about ensuring that our content is error-free. And that's been there since 3 generations, from my great-granduncle to my uncle, and now even we all are getting trained. And it's an amazing way to see that how we are able to drive this entire way to work to ensure that error-free content goes to the kids, because one error can lead to a wrong learning. So we have to ensure that doesn't happen.
Yes. Wow, that's really important. As you're mentioning, one error in a book, and then you have maybe 10,000 copies of that book published.
Yeah.
And if it's a factual error, then then children are just learning a wrong fact, and that book will stay in the market for at least 3 years, like you said. So so it does have a pretty large impact, and the attention to detail has to be very, very good.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And the other thing that you mentioned was that over the years, books have gone from being single color to double color to now multiple colors, and they're very, very pictorial in nature. That's exciting for parents to see.
Yeah.
Um, Fabulous. And would you say that the content of the books has also changed in terms of the written word, what is being written in books 10 years ago, 20 years ago, to now the information that we're sharing through textbooks?
Yes, the content is evolving, I would say, because while we follow the guidelines given by the set curriculum, we follow that and we give additional content as a part to support the children for better understanding. So in that way, yes, the books are evolving. The content is evolving now, and that got us to working on our project when we did that, and we got social emotional learning into the books. Yeah.
Wow. So, so social emotional learning is like my pet topic. I absolutely love talking about it. But today is, I notice you even have the icon on your screen. So I would love to hear from you what is meant by social emotional learning, and how have you attempted to integrate this into your textbook?
Yeah. So basically, when we were deciding on what should be the new ideas to be given in a book, and I have an experience of even managing pre-primary schools back a few years back. One thing which I realized that the emotional and the social touch is not very well captured in the books when you browse through some older books.
Huh?
So that is what we thought that we will bring in, and we gathered our team together, and we decided on working on the entire schema of how we can involve in every chapter, at the end of chapter or in between the chapter, which elements can be picked up and given an example as this is a social or emotional learning that a child is doing. And we basically try to integrate SEL with the instructional practice, and we try to integrate it with the classroom. So when we are saying that, we basically have tried to include learning environment in a friendly and a fear-free way. Then we've also tried to engage the learners with activities and making them involved and participative, making them engaged in any activity that they do. Instructions that we are giving, they have to be accessible by the learner, and they have to be, while they're accessible, they also have to be rigorous. We have ensured that enough encouragement is given to the learners so that they can think, discuss, inquire, and also create knowledge. So it's not just plain textbook which you pick up, you read, you rote learn, and then you go and give your exam. No, it is beyond that. It allows you to think, it allows you to discuss on certain topics. It allows you to inquire that, okay, why this, why not this? It allows you to create your own ideas, create free knowledge which you can put and share. And around this, we've created all our lessons and activities which create an entire package with the social emotional learning
Wow.
that we try to cover in our books.
You said so much in this like 1 minute, so much great information. I just want to tease it apart to make sure I'm understanding everything. So you mentioned that content in the textbook has to be accessible yet rigorous.
Yes.
And what I understand that means is that there are learners with different needs, and all of them are going to be reading the same textbook. So how do we make sure that it is meeting the needs of those different types of learners? And yet the rigor of the textbook has to be maintained.
Because that has to be matched the curriculum prescribed. I mean, we have to balance both.
Right. So could you give an example of how you maintain the same standard given by the framework, but still make it accessible for students with different needs. Maybe students who are better at speaking versus students who are better at writing. How do you do that in a textbook?
So I'll just give a small example. If I take in the inquiry as a topic,
Sure.
and where there's a question in one of our EVS books where it says that where did George go after the school? And basically, it's a lower standard book, the first second standard book, where basically we're trying to say that the child observes directly related to the question and gives a quantitative or a qualitative answer. So there in such examples which relates them basically to explain or give a reason to what they have observed. And as we go along to higher standards, we try to influence relationships perceived based on patterns or perceived on ideas. So an example we have in one of our books is, I'll give you a verbatim example. Rajat's character changes over the course of the story. How can you tell what led his change or behavior in behavior? So basically here we are trying to draw inferences based on relationships. And we are trying to basically upgrade the depth. It's the similar learning. You're trying to basically investigate or understand, but in the lower standard you're giving one question where there's a single answer to it, whereas as you go ahead you're trying to think and give maybe multiple ways of answering the same question. So that could be an example which we could give you for
Got it. Yeah. So the difficulty level and the complexity of the questions increases as the grade level increases.
yeah.
Another thing that you mentioned that Navneet is trying to do in their textbooks, and I should tell you, Ketan, we have questions here from our listeners that are asking exactly this. In what ways is Navneet Publishing making their text different from other publishers? So there's a lot.
So what we have done is basically we have taken the SEL, the social emotional learning part, and broken that into 5 different competencies, where we are trying to say that we are building self-awareness. We are trying to trying to tell the child to do self-management, how to involve them in social awareness, how to make them responsible for in decision making, and how to develop relationship skills. So these are the 5 aspects that we are trying to cover. And I have gathered an example on a few of them. If I may give you an example.
Yes, please.
When we are talking about social awareness in our books, in one of our books, we have basically tried to demonstrate an awareness and basically understanding of each person's emotion. So how do we identify and communicate emotions and feelings? For example, in the book, again in verbatim, how do you feel when a friend scores better marks than you? So basically, you're getting yourself aware that yes, there is something that I have to feel, I have to emote about. And another example which I can give you, which identifies emotional state that contributes to the ability to solve a problem, where again a question in one of our books that we have asked is which emotion or thought motivates you in studying for one test but not for the other. So basically you're trying to deal with emotions at a higher level. You're trying to identify and try to problem solve in a different manner.
Right, and I think this is also, building the skill of learning different names for emotions, which
Yes.
most of us didn't grow up with that. So often it is hard for us to even articulate in our own brains that, why am I feeling motivated to study
Yeah.
math, but I'm not able to channel the same motivation for social studies. And
Yes.
we don't have the feeling words for it. We don't know how to talk about it. So often we don't even know how to then manage that motivation, bring that motivation for social science. And as an educator for SEL, I certainly know that just these small nudges towards building children's
Mhm.
ability to introspect. How am I feeling about this? Why am I feeling about this? Just giving them these questions
Yeah.
gives them the space to think. And over time, if this is done, in the first grade and then second grade and then third grade and all the way through their childhood, if they learn how to express themselves and learn how to introspect, then over time, they develop that skill of being aware of how am I feeling, why am I feeling this way, and what do I need to do to um, to win at this situation, whatever situation it is, whether it's a competition, whether it's an exam, whether it's studying something that's really hard for me, whether it's in a relationship, in my family. They're able to use those skills that they've developed slowly over childhood in all of these different settings. And to me, I'm just so excited to hear that Navneet as a company is moving towards this. So, I know you have a lot of examples and I'm excited to hear more. But one thing I would love to ask you, Ketan, is not every publisher really cares about this. Why do you care about this?
I think it's an something that I've learned at work and from our family is that always try to see how who your learner is, and the learner is the child, and how we can bring a difference, how we can do different things for them, so that we can give better content. And so Navneet is well known for its supplement books back in the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat, and where we try to make the studies easier for the kids using the different reference materials that we are creating, and also the different writing books that we create in terms of workbooks and stuff like that. So those ideas have been installed in us for so many years, and we thought that when we are hitting the CBSE market, how can we make a difference so that it's not just one same plain vanilla textbook which is just following a set curriculum,
Yeah.
and it becomes another rote learning book. So we try to build a difference around it, and that's how we got few elements. And one of such element today, which we are discussing, is social emotional learning. That becomes a very integrated part today with the challenges that a child has to go through in the today's learning system, and the amount of the vastness of the curriculum which has come up, the peer pressure which is there, the pressure from home which is there on the kid to perform. In that, how do we make it interesting? How do we make learning fun? So we have to think of different ideas, and that's how we try to create books in Navneet, so that fine, they are books, but they are also fun.
Got it. Wow. Um, you know, so there are some questions already for you, Ketan.
I'm sure there will be
There
many.
are so many already. So one question here is about the lockdown. Do you think that the lockdown is going to change your business and you'll have to go online primarily?
So we have gone online. Our textbooks are available today as e-textbooks, of guides and workbooks. We have started with the guides. I think the e-digest is what is available today on the net. Apart from that, we already have been running classroom study material online through an app called Top Scorer. So that is another thing that we've already been doing in Navneet.
I see. Okay, that's great to know. Adapting with the times.
Yes.
Another question is that um, do students still need to make notes, in your opinion, or do you think that the text is enough to help them understand?
I'll go back to what I said, that we are trying to create children who think better, or who discuss, who inquire, or who are basically here to create knowledge. If all those things have to be done, then yes, they have to take notes. I mean, while the books will give them enough knowledge, but because there is SEL integrated in these books, a lot of questions and queries that come out of the book, which the child will have to put notes. Notes is not going anywhere. I think that is something which is there for staying, and it will always be there.
This just fills my heart with so much joy, Ketan, because essentially what you're saying is that we're looking at the child not just as a consumer of information given in a textbook,
Yeah,
but also as the creator of knowledge.
of course.
And, and what you're saying then is that it's not that the textbook is the be all and end all and everything that's written in the textbook is perfect, but in fact, the textbook itself can now be adapted the way Navneet is adapting its textbooks to ask questions that get children to do the thinking.
Yeah.
So a great, I think this is a great point to like hear some more examples of what kind of questions do you put in your textbooks?
So when we are talking about, say, self-management as one of the other skills that I spoke about in our textbooks, there is one question which is again a part of our book, is where we're writing that Manya got upset when Rajat asked her to quit the play. Can you think of a time when you were upset by something, or by a peer at your school, and how did you respond? So now when you ask a question like this, while you're answering the core content of the book, there is also beyond the book. You are going beyond and saying that a similar instance, has it happened with you, while it has happened with the subject in the book. What is that similar instance? How did you respond to it? What was your behavior towards it? So this is how you're trying to build, understand, trying to let the child think and innovate, and even create an assumption, and try to change. Okay, that I behaved like this, it was not wrong, I should be behaving better.
Wow. Yeah,
Or I did something right, I should make a note of this so that I can share it with somebody.
right. So, this is so interesting, and I'm so excited that now even in textbooks we're beginning to ask questions that get children to think.
Yeah, I'll share you one more example, which is a nice example which I had marked, and it says that discuss with your friend pros and cons of testing cosmetics on animals. Be sure of how the tone your speech in the discussion affects your friend. So while you may be answering this question the way it has been asked, but this leads you to a lot of thinking that, um, am I being cruel to an animal? Am I being, so while that is on the topic, but while that is there, what have you done similar, say with your friends or at home? So you're trying to understand those nitty gritties by these questions in the book, and trying to relate and try to bring out an understanding that how do we manage our emotions? How do we manage ourselves in situations?
Yeah, and how do we become more responsible in our
More
decision
responsible.
making?
Yes.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So, one question I had, and I continue to struggle with this, is that it's a great start that our textbooks are now asking these questions, which means that teachers all over India are reading these textbooks, and when they're making their students go through the questions, they're seeing, oh, okay, here I actually have to ask the children what they feel and how they would respond. Um, what if a child shares something that I would respond in this way, but the teacher disagrees with that? Like, do we then advise teachers to give the child the right answer, or do we advise the teacher to say it's okay, we are just helping our children think critically. You don't have to give the right answer to this
Well,
question.
I think it's more because when we are looking at a classroom today, it's a classroom of 40, it's a
Yeah.
classroom of 30. So it's not practically possible for a teacher to give individualistic answers to each and every child. That this is how you are thinking, this is not right. This is how you're thinking, this is right. Whereas to give a holistic approach to it, and that's what teachers do, and that's what teachers spend time on, trying to give an holistic approach. And we support with our books or with the material which allows them to give them the holistic approach to entire topic. So that's how I think react. It's not that a teacher would want to force upon a child that this is the answer, you're not wrong, you're right. While that may happen for an answer which is more scientific or more dated, depending on the subject they're doing. But when it comes to discussion, I think it's more of an idea which a teacher installs, and then there can be a group discussion happening. Am I able to answer your?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let's look at one more example. Would you like to share?
Yeah, so then that brings me to the next area which I had covered, which I have to cover is on social awareness. How do we incorporate social awareness? How do we talk about social awareness in our books? Is by recognizing relationships between self and others. So, an example that when does your mother help you with schoolwork? How does her support help you? So when you ask such questions, while you are answering that same question, there could be when does my friend help me in doing my homework, or when have I been able to help somebody to do a particular task. So that brings you to that. So at the lower standards, we try to stick to one query to a single kind of an answer. But as you go along to a higher standard, there could be we have questions like Ashoka couldn't have won the war alone. Who were his supporters and what the relationships they have shared with him? So now here, this becomes an inquiry. This becomes a way for the child to explore more, go in depth, understand the relationships, understand all the characters which are there around. So this was more of a history question. So it is not left. So textbook will be covering some part of it. Whereas when you ask a question like this, the child will go beyond the textbook, will go probably on the internet, or will ask the teacher that, do you know who else was there as a part of the Ashoka, at the part of the Ashoka time, and who when a particular war was fought, who won and who was. So, all these kind of queries can build up. So this is how we are trying to integrate learning, trying to integrate social awareness in our books. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the example that you just gave is so much about perspective taking, right? Like, can you imagine what perspectives these supporting people had and what was the relationship they had to the king?
Yeah.
And these are questions that were never in my history book. So I'm so I'm so happy to hear that you are leading this movement of what textbooks can look like.
Yes.
And I think the new generation that's going to be using these textbooks and the teachers that are going to be teaching from these textbooks are going to experience a slightly happier learning experience. When we're able to think and we're able to be engaged in the learning, then there's joy. Otherwise, like when I used to read my history books, I used to just get bored. I used to fall asleep because they didn't ask me to ever think. They
It was
just,
all learning about dates. Let's put it that way.
yeah, like what date did it happen? How many people died? It was not engaging me at all.
Today, when you learn a lesson in a history, you understand the strategy and you apply that in your today's life. That okay, somebody did something like this. A war was fought like this. What was the reason why it was fought?
Yeah, and
You apply it today. That okay, if something like this happens, when two countries are fighting at borders or whatever, so what are the consequences? You relate to that, and that's how as days are going, children are becoming more inquiry based, more understanding that, okay, all this is not required. We have to live in a better world. We have to live in a happy world. So, I mean, this is how things are evolving today.
And honestly, it's so timely, Ketan, because Google can give me these facts of how many people died and what date did this Battle of Plassey happen on. Google can give me that much faster than me looking through a textbook. So I think it's very timely that as a company you are taking a stand that for books to still be relevant to the demands of the 21st century, where children need to think. They can't just reproduce facts and win in the 21st century. If they want to win in this century, they're going to have to do some thinking, analysis, creating knowledge, you said. And you're leading the way.
Analytical thinking, critical thinking, all these skills have to be built up.
Beautiful. Awesome. So let's look at a few more questions that we've received.
Sure.
Have you established a feedback loop for teachers regarding the SEL competencies that your books are trying to teach? So have you received any feedback from teachers?
So our books have just recently been launched, and they were about to hit the market, and we went into this lockdown situation. So, and the schools have the new academic year is yet to start. Yes, but the feedback mechanism is there. We have, of course, a way to reach us through an email if there's a query, and we will definitely get back to teachers if there is a query coming to our inbox.
Okay, so the actual feedback of when they use it is going to now come in the new academic year.
Yes, it's not been. It's just gone to the market. The books.
Wonderful. I'm so excited to hear what.
We are very excited because the next year and the following year, we are going to build similar kind of books. So yes, we are quite excited that these books will do very well.
Yeah. Right. Okay. One more question, please.
Yes.
Is there material that you want to add in the textbooks, but you're not allowed to?
So if there is a framework given by the government to follow a particular framework for the textbook, we are able to go a little bit beyond the textbook, but unfortunately, our system has something called the examination system, which confines to the textbook. There are a few questions, as I'm understanding, which come from the outside, but they are more to the related topic. And absolutely outside the textbook, I haven't come across yet. I'm hoping more practical ways of doing things will come up. That's when a lot of external knowledge is required.
Right.
Of course, subjects like general knowledge, which have been introduced in schools, help us get a lot of external knowledge now. But again, still they are defined to a particular book. It's again a framework. It's again being within the boundaries of a curriculum, which is good in a way, I would say, so that publishers don't go haywire. They are within a limit, and you know what to teach a child at what age, and try to keep the child learning capability in mind. Every child is a different capable learner, but there is something which needs to be capped. You can't try to teach a toddler that that's a moon and this is how you'll fly into the rocket. You can teach them the moon in a poetry, but you can't be teaching them the solar system at a kindergarten. And there are debatable issues. People are doing it, but I don't want to touch that. But yeah, as far as books go, I think they are pretty much within the framework. And I believe we should follow a framework.
Okay. Got it. Another question is there a way for teachers to find out the level of students' social emotional competency through the book? Meaning they do this chapter, maybe they do 5 chapters of English literature, and every chapter has some social emotional learning questions.
Okay.
Now, is there a way that the book can help teachers understand what the children's social emotional competency level is?
So there are a lot of examples in our book which are given for the teachers to tell the child to do at home or discuss with the parents at home on a particular instance. I will quickly open a page of a book which I have here. And so when we are talking about an instance, I'm reading from a book where we are talking about a social awareness. Now, write 3 sentences I help my family by in your EVS notebook. Read them in the class. Listen to your classmate and learn at least 2 more ways in which you can help your family members. Now, you see, then you're learning that I help my family by. You're learning one thing, and then now you're taking it further to 2, 3 other ideas where you're doing it in classroom, where you're doing it in at home as a part of homework the teacher could give it. That okay, this can be your homework which the child does and brings it. So this is how a teacher can see whether implementation is happening of a particular learning, where the child is learning and how a child is connecting to the social awareness and how he's being more responsible.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. And are there any challenges that you faced so far? I understand that this is the first time that Navneet has tried to incorporate social emotional learning in textbooks, so there must have been some challenges.
We are trying to explain our when our marketers go back to the market, and they have done a small bit of marketing before we got into the shutdown. They have to retrain themselves that they're not just selling a book, but they're selling a book which has much more beyond the book inside. So they go and they go and explain the book. We are trying to give a small video with our author who's explaining the book and trying to explain the concepts. So this is how we have been trying to achieve this. Of course, time will only tell us how what more challenges we will face. But we are doing good training with our team. We luckily we got a good time to do a lot of training with our teams. So we did individualistic training across India with our teams to help them take these books ahead. And beyond that, I think as I don't know if I can share an example of how we at a business level have actually taken care of social emotional learning since a long time. It is not just these books. So it has been imbibed in our system that try to develop things which are connecting. It's not just there for the reason or for the sake of it. So I can share a couple of examples from our we used to run kindergarten schools.
Yes, please share.
And we used to manage kindergarten schools back 8, 10 years back, and under the name Leapridge. And we tried to bring in inclusive education, which is very, very important in today's day and world. And the moment you bring in inclusive education, you're touching the emotional and the social side of the child, where you're trying to say that every child is equal, where you're trying to say that every child is an equal kind of a learner. Every child is special. Every child is different. So we had children who were having various physical issues or learning issues, learning challenges, I would say. But we got them into the classroom and we got them learning together. We got them, the empathy levels are built with children when you try to incorporate social and emotional learning as a part of your curriculum. And I'll just give you 2 examples in this, where one example is where we had taken an admission of a Down syndrome child. So we never refused an admission, regardless who and where the child came from. And this child, of course, Down syndrome, I don't need to explain, but it's an ability where there is it's a lesser brain development has happened. And so the challenge was how to incorporate a Down syndrome child in mainstream schooling along with all the children. So we created little special curriculum for the child. There was a ghost teacher along with the child. And the end result, I will go straight to the end result, is when you are doing an activity, a large group activity. In our case, we did a sports activity, and where there are these small races are happening. We trained this child to run a race, a 50-meter race, straight in a line, identifying that these are the two bordered lines, and I have to go and run the race across through the thread which is hanging on the other side. And it was so beautiful that winning was not important. Participation has always been important for us. And this child ran through the entire race without changing the track. And and towards the end of it, two or three children came towards the child and held the hand and take him further to the finish line. So while we are building an ability for a child, we are also building empathy to other children. That yes, he is my friend, she is my friend. I want to ensure that she finishes. A child would fall down, pick them up, run with them. So these are the things that we've experienced and witnessed when we were running our schools. And second example I would give is of a child who was visually impaired. And yes, we did admit a few of these children in our schools, where we actually got the child training to do various activities, while we also tried to take a help of a teacher who knew Braille. So we appointed a special teacher for that child, over and above the school learning, and also engage the child in activities which were group activities. And at an annual day function, the child got involved in a dance. And the end of the dance of it was a small bhangra kit where the girl has to climb on two boys who are kneeling down and has to wave a flag, an India flag, at the end of the song. This child was able to go to the kids in the front, climb up on her own on the child, and did the action which was taught to her. Of course, there were two children who were ensuring that she doesn't fall down at the back, but they were doing their bit, whereas she was doing her bit. And this allows again the child, you don't have to what I would say is that the ability which is built in these children is there. They are gifted. These kids are gifted. Every child is gifted according to me. But how you bring the ability of that child out is a good educator, a good education system, a good education institution's job. And this is what we did, and we were able to, I have seen 350 parents in this auditorium, more than half of them having tears in their eyes when they see this. Even I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this. But it's an amazing experience to see. And the same kid in the following year, which was her last year in our school, she actually sang a song with her harmonium teacher. So it's an amazing experience, and how other kids relate to these kids and how they socially bond. So there is no sympathy, there is empathy. Very, very clear. We leave the word sympathy aside and we bring empathy in our system. And that's how exactly that learning has helped me and the team which we have here, who is developing these books. They have spent a lot of years in their respective areas and have brought this entire aspect together of social emotional learning and how they've integrated the entire system. And yeah, this is a practical experience, I would say, as an organization, where it's not just because we were doing these books and we want to now bring a difference, but it's been incorporated as our values in the organization, across products that we bring, across services that we are bringing, whether it's a stationery book that we bring. We do a lot of learning. It's not just a cover that is printed on the book. we bring an element and we bring in some text which supports that element. If there is Sachin Tendulkar's picture on the cover, we would actually bring in some data inside to ensure that the child learns about that character. Or if there's a car photo given on the cover, then why is this vehicle? What does it mean? How fast it goes or how slow it goes? That learning has to happen. It just can't be a plain vanilla cover given a floral design or a flower or any photograph, give it and sell it. No, we have to bring a learning aspect to every product that we create. And that's been incorporated in Navneet deep, I would say. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I can sense so much pride in you when you talk of these products because they resonate. Each of these products is built through values that you hold very, very close to your heart. So, and I can just hear that in your voice and in your excitement as you're talking about these examples. And truly, I think it means a lot for particularly business people in the education industry to hear what you're saying, because education also can be quite a business, and so many of the people that we know that are in this market are running it like a business. So I think it's highly inspiring to hear that what you're doing is coming from a place of values and not just from a place of profit. So really, really thank you for sharing this. It's incredibly moving for me to hear this. And I think I have just one more question with, it's almost been an hour. Just one more question, which is, what do you think is ahead for your organization as next steps? And what do you think is ahead for the field of textbooks?
I would like to bring in a small note here that the education system in our country needs to evolve, and I urge authorities to give attention to the education system and how we can bring better learning and better ways to learn for a child. And we publishers, education companies are there to support. And any one person can't do everything. We have to be hundreds of us who can do many things. Let's be very clear about it. And we have to bring that change. And that change has to come from the top. It can't be a school that can change. It can't be a publisher that can change. It can't be a teacher who can change anything, but it has to come from the top. The top has to decide that, yes, we want to bring this change. We want to improvise. The budgets have to increase for the education system. And this is how an entire storm which will come in our system, which will upgrade the entire education base. And I think we are still at the bottom. We have not even seen what is the best of it. The opportunity is tremendous. It's huge for the teachers to teach children differently, not do the same rote learning, not do the same ways of approaching a question the same way. The systems have to be not just typically exam oriented. It's sad when you see when you go down south in our country and when you see a first, second, third standard children trying to study for an IIT exam, which they're probably going to give, I God knows when. And this is a 8-year-old, 9-year-old who's trying to learn capabilities which will make him capable for an IIT exam. Why should a child not learn many more things? And why has this entire system come down to that level where it has become so much of rote learning? Why can't we change that? Why can't it be application based learning? Why can't it be thoughtful based learning? And why do we need these kind of high-end exams and all that? Just bring in a system. I remember discussing this with one of my colleagues a few days back, whom I met almost after 20 years of my school. And I said that I wish we had a system in the 10th grade where there was not a special class of that 20 children who were given a principal to study with, the best of the teachers to study with, just because they came top 5 in the class. Instead, why don't all class of 80 or 100 get a similar kind of education? Why can't the school touch upon those children who are in the 30s, 40s, and 50 percentile, try to bring their percentage up so that overall average comes up? And why only because the kids who are at the top will remain at the top no matter what you do. They have that ability to be there, then they will be there.
Correct.
What about those kids who are struggling at the bottom? How can you bring them up? How can you bring their, because every child is intelligent. Nobody is not intelligent. It's just the way you process knowledge is different. It's the way you imbibe knowledge, you learn knowledge is different. I think that's the gap which we need as a society, as as a system to fill, and create learning fun and make learning super fun. And that is exactly in the direction Navneet is heading, with various kind of books that we are creating, the supplementary books that we are creating, the digital content that we are creating, the notebooks that we are creating, the writing instruments material that we are creating, the coloring material that we are creating. Everything that Navneet creates, we try to bring in a difference. We try to bring in the fun element while it is serious, but there is fun. And we'll continue to do that. We'll try to evolve, and we'll try to be up to the date to the market.
Thank you so much, Ketan, for sharing your journey, your passion, your values that are determining all the work that you're doing now and in the future. This has been truly delightful, not just for me, I think for our listeners as well. There have been so many questions and a lot of comments saying thank you for sharing and you're walking the talk. So thank you so much for taking your time out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vrinda, for this opportunity and for allowing me to share some thoughts. And yes, you have been a part of our journey also, which I should definitely mention. The SEL journey, which we've taken in Navneet. And yes, thank you for that also. And I would also like to take opportunity to thank my team, who's worked very, very hard for creating these books. And my team, whoever I've worked with in past, with all the projects that I've done, from my school projects to this books project, everywhere, all the teams that I've worked with. I think this is what creates great content. This is what creates great ideas. No one individual can change anything, but yes, as a team, we can bring in a lot of difference.
Beautiful. Hearing you loud and clear on the collaboration that all of us need to do in this movement. And lastly, thank you so much, fomonomore, for having us and having this series on education reform at prime time, 9 p.m. every night. If you have just joined, some of our listeners here, do like this page. They're coming up with absolutely great positive skills and great positive content that people from across the world are sharing. And tomorrow at 9 p.m., I will be back here for one of my last conversations on education reform, where we talk about sexuality and consent education for our children. This is a tough topic, and often we don't talk about it, but tomorrow we will. So be there. Thank you.
I urge every listener to attend tomorrow and try to bring in many more, because that's a topic which has always been neglected by us. As okay, we always put a back eye to that topic, but I think it's very important. Consent is something which is very, very important, especially in small children. I don't want to get into the topic, but yes, try to bring in as many friends and families who can attend this session. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, and this is our time. Bye bye.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.